Greetings, YouTube. The doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today on the Doctor Spell Prognosis, we're talking about the spell Dawn. We're giving this spell a B+, but there's an asterisk to this. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I have a video coming out. Okay, the asterisk next to this spell is that if you are in a situation where you can take advantage of this because things are sensitive to sunlight, hypersensitive to sunlight, or are vulnerable to radiant damage, this spell becomes close to an A+, possibly even an S. It will nuke those types of creatures. So, let's get into the spell. It's 5th level spell. It's usable only by clerics and wizards. Okay. Not sure why it's not usable by certain kinds of sorcerers. But, you know, the sorcerers, they don't get enough love. They don't have enough specific spell lists according to their sorcerer orders, things like that. Technically, I think druids should be able to cast this, but they're not. But it's only clerics and wizards, and that's it. So we'll leave it at that. It takes one action, range of 60 feet. It is a 30-foot wide radius, a 30-foot radius column that is 40 feet high. Verbal, somatic, and material component. This is the only kind of drawback from this. It's a 100 gold piece sunburst pendant, but it's not consumed with the spell, so you can keep using that. Lasts for a minute. It's concentration. Yes, you want to concentrate. It's a con save. I hate con saves because most likely creatures are going to make that con save, but it is a con save. Okay. So light shines down on a location you specify within range until the spell ends. There's a 30-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder of bright light. So this will nuke a bunch of creatures that could be flying too. This light is sunlight. So that's a really important sentence to keep in mind when we're talking about this spell. When the cylinder appears, each creature in it must make a con save, taking 4d10 radiant damage on a failed save. So 4d10 is on average 22 points of damage. Or half as much on a successful, which is 11. So most likely, a lot of creatures are going to be taking just 11. A creature must also make the saving throw whenever it ends its turn in the cylinder. Not begins, but ends. It'd be better if it was begins, but it isn't. It's ends. So what that means is this spell can be used to kind of control the battlefield and control positioning on the battlefield. So certain creatures are probably, I would say most creatures are not going to want to end up in this and take this kind of freebie damage that you're going to be given out, particularly if they're vulnerable to it. If you're within 60 feet of the cylinder, you can move it up to 60 feet as a bonus action on your turn. So that's even more awesome. You can move it. So again, there's more battlefield control that comes along with this spell because you can position it. I'm not going to stay in here. I'm going to move over here because I don't want to take this damage at the end of my turn. Yeah, on my turn, I'm going to move it over you again. So I'm going to force you to move every single turn. Now, it is an evocation spell, so an evocation wizard can use this spell to exempt party members. So now that fighter can move right up next to a creature, and the fighter is exempt from the spell because it's going to make a save, and it takes no damage if he makes his save or her save. And then that creature it's got a choice. It could stand there next to the fighter and take the damage, or try and move. It's going to have to use its action and disengage to get away without taking an attack of opportunity, or take the attack of opportunity because they have to move and they don't want to take the sunlight damage. So, whole bunch of bad stuff. Really good battlefield control, particularly for a evocation wizard. Not so much for the cleric, although this is a cleric-y-like spell. So, if we go into the D&D Beyond, and I just put sunlight in, and I filtered this for Compendium and Monsters. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here about that. Barovia, so Curse of Strahd, this is probably an awesome spell for that. And then there's a whole bunch of monsters in here that have something that happens with sunlight. So let's look at specters. So when in sunlight, the Spectre has disadvantage on attack rolls and as well on wisdom checks that rely on sight. And I think that's pretty much the extent. We don't have that book. That is pretty much the extent of sunlight sensitivity. We don't have that book either. Shadows, obviously, just the base shadow, obviously, has sunlight sensitivity. They also have sunlight weakness. So while in dim light, sunlight weakness. While in sunlight, the shadow has disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. So they're going to take a whole bunch of damage because they got a whopping +1 on their con save, and they have disadvantage on saving throws. So they're probably going to take a whole bunch of damage to that. And then, there's a bunch of different creatures in here, like the Yelfhound, which has sunlight banishment. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do. But you should be familiar with these creatures, like the Wraith. So they have sunlight sensitivity, which again is disadvantage on attack rolls and perception checks. Kobolds, and it's funny when I put this in here, Vampire doesn't appear. But if you look at vampires have sunlight hypersensitivity, and they take 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight. While in sunlight, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. So a whole bunch of bad things for vampires. This one gets an S for vampires because it nukes the vampires. Now, what monsters are vulnerable to radiant damage? Well, here they all are, right here. And, we've got things like Shadow Demon. So there it is. So they take double damage from radiant light. Vampires are not in here, but things like the Shadow Assassin, Ariel's first form, the Atropole is another one that's vulnerable. There's not a lot of creatures that are vulnerable to radiant damage, but there are enough. So, all right, that's what I got for everybody today. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will catch everybody later.